This is the first book review for 3 different books for 2026. New year, I'm using my new little ring light that I got for Christmas because I'm filming this in the dark. So let me know if this is okay, because I feel this is highlighting every part of me. But I read 2 physical books and 1 on my Kindle. Yes, Ralphie here, the 12-year-old Kindle is still chugging along. And I was really pleased to have read 3 books. This happened for 2 reasons. 1, they were shorter books. And 2, I got sick in January. So I was able to just read when, my eyes weren't burning from a fever. As usual, I have my note card, I have my laptop, and let's get into what I read in January. First is Future Boy, Back to the Future and My Journey Through the Space-Time Continuum by Michael J. Fox and Nellie Fortenberry. And I received this as a Christmas gift from my family. I had not realized that another book by Michael J. Fox had come out, and I was doom scrolling on social media, and through a Back to the Future fan site learned of this. And if I am thinking correctly, I think I've read everything he has written. And if you are an OG here, you know my crush on him began when I was 5. And he holds a special place in my heart for, that first celebrity crush. And if you're new here, Back to the Future, Michael J. Fox are, just a part of my childhood. And just as a heads up type of story, when I was younger at Universal Studios, they had a DeLorean there. It wasn't roped off. Anybody could go up to it. And my little, I think I was maybe 6 or 7 at the time, my little self threw myself on the hood and was like, he touched this. So, of course, I'm going to read anything he puts out. So this book is only about his time going back and forth between filming Family Ties and the first Back to the Future, and how he hopped into Back to the Future last minute. Well, he found out about it, last minute, after Eric Stoltz was asked to leave the role of Marty McFly. And it's just what his days were like, and little filming snippets, both Family Ties and Back to the Future, and how his private life looked, which was pretty non-existent. And I just liked that it was condensed like that it was just focusing on those 2 things. And that made for a very short book, which was fine. It was my first opening book of the new year, and I wanted something that I was pretty sure I would enjoy. Oh, there he is. There are pictures in it, which is always fun to look at. And it was well written, kept my attention. I read past my personal daily quota. It was just a really easy read. It doesn't read stuffy or anything like that. And yeah, if you're looking for some nostalgia, behind the scenes look, I highly recommend. I gave it 5 stars. I started reading it on January 1st and I finished it January 10th. So I was quite pleased with the first book of the year. I like to read a physical book and then I swing over to my Kindle and I just alternate back and forth like that. And the next book I read was A Storm of Infinite Beauty by Julianne McLean. And this was an Amazon Prime free read, and I downloaded it May 30th, 2024. If you're new here, I usually download books for the free book month thing, and I take years and years to read it. So I've been known to read a Kindle book that I downloaded in like 2013. So to have read it, and it's only been since 2024 since I downloaded it, is pretty good for me. To read the synopsis of this, it says Scarlett Fontaine is a true Hollywood legend, a singer, actress, and beloved fashion icon. But Scarlett dies tragically at just 36 years old, leaving behind no children, or so the story goes. Gwen Hollingsworth is a curator at a museum dedicated to Scarlett's life. She is also the sole heir to Scarlett's fortune as a descendant of the star. But all is not well in Gwen's world. She's dealing with a messy marital separation and is struggling to move forward. So when Peter Miller, a biographer and photojournalist, comes to the museum with shocking claims about Scarlett, a life of exile in Alaska, a baby born in secret, Gwen's whole world is turned upside down again. And this takes place in Nova Scotia and Alaska. And that's my laptop. I will admit, I've not read anything that focuses on those two locations, so that was interesting. And it is dual time. You're going to go back to Scarlett and Gwen. Sometimes the Scarlett timeline is a little long compared to like present day, to the point where I was like, oh, I really don't need to go back and forth. We can just stick in one time and tell it, consecutively. So sometimes that was a little jarring to hop back after so long spent back in time. There is mystery with predictability. There are some trigger warnings that deal with loss, and I think the biggest takeaway in this book is learning how grief affects you and others, and how it changes you, and how you move on from something. That you don't really move on, but you adapt and morph into potentially a new person. And there is a lot of sadness, but the ending leaves you feeling content. I gave it 4 stars, and I read it from January 11th to the 24th. And the final book I read in January was a physical book, and it is The Bookwoman of Troublesome Creek by Kim Michelle Richardson. And this was a more recent purchase. I got this over the summer at the used book section of our library, but it happened to be a book that I had on my wish list, to be read list, for a while now, so that's why I snatched it up. And I've only recently learned there's a sequel and a third one coming out, I think, in April. So I'm looking forward to that. It is about the folks of Troublesome Creek have to scrap for everything except books, that is. Thanks to Roosevelt's Kentucky Pack Horse Library Project, Troublesome's got its very own traveling librarian, Cussie Mary Carter. Cussie's not only a bookwoman, however, she's also the last of her kind, her skin a shade of blue unlike most anyone else. Not everyone is keen on Cussie's family or the government's new book program, and along her treacherous route, Cussie faces doubters at every turn. And it is inspired by the true blue-skinned people of Kentucky and also the Kentucky Pack Horse Library of the 1930s. And I had to remind myself this was the 30s, because what the life was of these people in the Kentucky area was so rural, so even outdated during this time. I thought it was the 1860s type of thing. But so much is packed into this book. So much heartache, so much sadness, that the little pockets of happiness, of positivity, quickly get bashed down. And I saw that a lot of people said that on Goodreads, that the ending was like, why couldn't you just leave it on a little more of a positive note? I'm not giving away any spoilers, but it just is one thing after another. And unfortunately, that probably was the truth of the time, where there was more heartache than joy. And it makes you realize you got to take those little pockets of joy and hang on to them and savor them, because sometimes the ball keeps rolling and knocks you down. Cussy Mary goes around with her donkey, and delivers books to people on her route, takes special requests, finds things that she thinks they will like. She puts together a scrapbook of home remedies and recipes and sewing patterns to pass on for people to enjoy, and then accepts little donations to put in there of, here's a recipe that worked, here's a home remedy, things like that. And she becomes friends with and attached to the people who she is getting books to. Some are more friendly than others, but I think what just struck me was how, for the most part, excited and joyous everyone was to see her once a week come onto their land going, "Did you find me any books?" And it just made me smile, because we get that way going to the library, or finding a little library or a used book sale going, I wonder what treasures we're going to find to read. And it made me just sit back and go, man, I am grateful that we can just drive to the library and have the biggest selection of books to choose from. And I don't have to wait for somebody to ride into my yard with maybe one book for me that I may have already read, but will just read again because of a lack of options. I look forward to reading the sequel and eventually the third one. And I gave this 5 stars, and I read this from January 25th to the 29th. And this is the book I was able to just read through while I was sick. And I am glad this is the one I picked up while I was under the weather. So that wraps up the first month of the year down with reading. And I am quite pleased with how things have started. And if you read any good books in January, let me know what they were. And until next time, happy reading. Bye.